हमें किताब चाहिए हमें किताब चाहिए
Okay, not sure if I should be speaking. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, brilliant. Okay, so I will kick off then. I'll be sharing my screen in a moment. But just to say, this is my third participation in the CLF. I'm really, really happy to be with you all. It's a little bit different this year, and I must say I'm a little bit disconcerted because I usually, I usually enjoy having everybody in the room with me and doing an interactive session. And so this one is going to be very different because I don't really know what is going on with you. And because of the topic, the content of the topic, it's a little bit, I would rather have you with me and be able to get your feedback. But anyway, let's see how it goes. And it's a new experience. I'm going to talk really about how to bring imagination into books. So I'm going to start, let me see, sharing my screen, but I can't, oh yes, here we are. Okay, so is this visible to everybody? Yes, so it's bringing books alive. I'll start with no further ado. I just want to say that because I'm talking about imagination and I wanted to really reduce the visual images. So you're going to have to work quite hard. And if you think my slides are a bit boring, it's deliberate, okay? Because I want you to kind of participate and put your bit into the session. And as I say, it's a little bit harder because we're doing it virtually. Now, I'm going to give you an example from my own life, just to say, I mean, we've spoken a lot about, we speak a lot about screen time, about children being exposed to lots of visual images. And what I want to do is see how we as teachers and also parents can try and reduce that and stimulate children's other senses. Okay, and so I'm going to share a little story about myself to illustrate this. When I was probably about 6 or 7, I was in bed with one of these childhood illnesses, chickenpox or measles, and I was starting to recover. I was feeling much better. And my mum brought me Alice in Wonderland, and I read the book. I was absolutely enthralled by it, and it took me maybe 2 days to finish the whole book. I just didn't stop, and I was absolutely entranced by it. I loved it. I loved the story, the humor, the trip into a different magical world where all kinds of strange things happened. And a little bit later, as I carried this precious memory around with me of my Alice in Wonderland, my mum introduced me to, she recommended actually that on television there was going to be a film of Alice in Wonderland that evening. And would I want to watch it? So I did. It was a wonderful BBC production. But afterwards I said, Mum, you know, I wish I hadn't seen that film because it was different to my Alice in Wonderland, and it kind of ruined the precious state of what I imagined in my head. And then I couldn't stop thinking of the TV version, which for me was kind of inferior. So I think we need to remember this, that imagination is precious, and sometimes we don't want interference from outside. So the visual image, as we've, I don't want to go on and on about this because we talk about it all the time in these unfortunate COVID times when we're on screen all the time. But just to illustrate the how very, very stimulating visual images are, I'm sure that you've been in a room, so for example, a cafe or a restaurant where they've got a TV on, and how difficult it is not to look at that image. Even if you're speaking to your friend, you're kind of drawn, even if you're not interested in watching the cricket or whatever it is, you're kind of drawn towards that. And if you have a cafe where they've got a visual, where they've got a TV, and then they've also got maybe background music, when you come out, you'll probably remember what was on the screen, but you might not remember the music that was playing. So it's very, very strong. And children don't always know what they want. You know how kids always want to watch cartoons and they want Cartoon Network on all day. And sometimes, you know, they might think they want it, and in reality, if parents are strong enough to get the TV off, children might find that they're doing something a little bit more interesting, like playing a game that they're creating themselves, and stimulating other senses like sound, smell, and touch, which are getting understimulated nowadays. So yeah, it's important to give children a choice. And in our classroom, particularly state school classrooms, which we always think are under-resourced, in a way, it's a gift, because the fact that there are no screens in the classroom mean, you know, when there are very few resources, although of course it's not a fantastic situation, but it does mean that children are available for other kinds of stimulation. Another little story from my own life to illustrate, you know, this thing of giving children a choice and insisting, is this fear of children being bored and boring. So bored is an unexplored emotion. We don't always know what being bored means, and sometimes it has a much deeper meaning. So when my son, who's now a grown man, was very young, maybe 5, 6, and we lived in Rome in Italy, and my parents came and visited, so the grandparents came, and we all went out and we went to the Colosseum, this fantastic Roman monument, and you know, my son was absolutely enthralled, going back to Roman times, and then we had a lovely lunch, and I'm sure he got presents, and we walked around the city. When we came home, he was really tired, and he started, you know, screaming and crying and saying he was bored. He wanted to do something else. And eventually I just let him stay in his room. And when I came back, he'd completely fallen asleep, and he slept right through from, you know, about 5 o'clock in the afternoon to the next morning without his dinner. He was absolutely exhausted. And actually what he was protesting against is this feeling of bored. Actually, he just needed lots of, he just needed peace and quiet, really, although he didn't realize that. So, you know, this need to create space for children that is not the visual image on a screen is so important. Let's look then at the story, the book, which is what I want to bring into the session now, because through stories, we can guide children into the space where we can support their imagination and allow their imagination to develop. And, you know, I'm sure you're very aware of this. Let's look a little bit at how we can do it, because if children are possibly resisting, we need a little bit of help here. So I'm going to talk about three very broad themes: prediction, personalization, and extension, as you know, very kind of rough guidelines as to how to bring children into this imaginative space that supports the reading of a story. Okay, so if we look at prediction, hello, is there somebody? Maybe if you just put yourselves on mute, it's probably better. Okay, so if you're, so sorry, I've just lost my drift. Yeah, so if we're teachers and you know, we're preparing students for reading or listening, prediction we know is very useful, because when we listen to something or when we read something, we've often already decided a lot of what we're either going to read or hear. Let's concentrate on reading, since we're going to look at storybooks. But so, for example, if you pick up a newspaper article and you look at the headline, you're very likely going to be able to imagine what is in the newspaper article. And there might be a few things which are new, but I would imagine that most of that article you've already, you know what's going to talk about, and you can skim through it really quickly. And you know, you might even be skim through it so quickly because you might misinterpret something and think you know what it's saying and misread it, or you might be surprised by something that was unexpected. And in storybooks, so for example, the classic kind of, you know, once upon a time, happily ever after story, or, you know, the superhero story, which is a sort of archetype. The stories always go the same way, and there's just the details which are different. So if we allow children to predict what's going to happen before the, you know, before we actually read the story to the children, it will be much easier for them to follow the story, because they've had the opportunity to, you know, think about what they're going to hear, the story that they're going to hear. So the next is I'm going to talk about personalization as a tool to bringing the book to life. And that means that if you personalize it, you're able to relate the story very, very strongly to yourself. So you either imagine yourself in the role of one of the characters, or you identify it very strongly. And often stories where there's a strong personalization are the stories that we enjoy most, particularly as children. When we get older, there's you know, books that give new information, which can be, you know, obviously we like that, but you need a certain amount of maturity to be able to take in that and to bring in a world that you can't really identify or you don't know much about into your cognitive thought process. So, for example, when I was about 14 or 15, I read the story Wuthering Heights, which I don't know, I'm sure some of you have read it or you're familiar with it. It's a Gothic novel, very passionate, set in the north of England in a remote area where it's always raining and windy and very wild weather. And a bit like Alice in Wonderland, I was totally and utterly spellbound by this book. And I spent, you know, the days following it in this world, this Wuthering Heights world, where I was you know, and I was literally going out into the rain and wind because I lived in Scotland at the time. It wasn't very difficult. The weather's always windy and rainy, and, you know, dashing around, feeling passionate, and thoroughly personalizing the book to myself. And funnily enough, I read the book a few years ago, not that long ago, and I was completely and utterly shocked because the hero, Heathcliff, who I'd identified as a passionate hero, is actually, well, now reading recently, I found him thoroughly unpleasant. Actually, I thought the book was quite strong, quite unpleasant, a lot of quite sort of psychological violence in it. And I had a completely different experience, so identifying with it in another way. Another example of personalization, you know, in crime mysteries, it's not an emotional thing, but it's more a mental thought process, but we try to solve the mystery along with the detective as he goes along, he or she goes along. So these are, you know, different examples of personalization. Extension is something that we can do to keep the story going after it's ended, and it can also be really good for children to do that and extend their imagination. It's something that's been quite popular. A lot of very famous books were recently, they had a sequel written by a famous author. So for example, Pride and Prejudice was one, also the Sherlock Holmes books. So it was, yeah, a way of continuing with that theme and, you know, giving a variation, what the hero and the heroine were doing 10 years later, for example. Or, but, you know, children can do this, and then they can do things like change the ending to the story, which has also been done to particularly terribly tragic stories. For example, King Lear, you know, Shakespeare's King Lear, which has the most horrendously tragic ending. During Victorian times, it was deemed too horrible for the audience to bear, and they changed it to a happy ending. That is not popular anymore. But, you know, giving the children the opportunity to rewrite the ending is something which, again, is very, very stimulating. Okay, so just wondering how this has been for you. I know you're seeing me on your screen, possibly, or the slideshow. Maybe I can see me. But, you know, just the fact that I've been trying to keep the visuals down, I'm just wondering if you can just think what it's been like for you. Has it been difficult for you to follow? Has your mind been wandering? Were you expecting more pictures, more animations? And it's fine if you did find it, you know, like less stimulating. I haven't finished, by the way, but I'm just wondering, I just wanted to give you the moment to reflect on your experience so far. Okay, so now we're going to go on to a story, and you are going to see pictures eventually, not quite yet. There's another difficulty which I've encountered, and that is that a lot of books, well, most books are copyright, and I can't share them with you. So lots of books that I would have loved to have used for this session are not available because I would have to got very difficult, you know, sort of long process of permission and stuff. So what I've done is use an online site called Book Dash. I'll give you the link in a moment. These are stories that anybody can use to do anything. You can download them and share them with anybody you want, and it's completely free. So if you're wondering why I've chosen these stories, that's basically why I have. Okay, so the story I'm going to start off with is called A Beautiful Day, and it's a story for young, you know, for primary kids, let's say grade 1 to maybe 3. So very simple, but just to quickly go through it, or not quickly, but we'll go through it and see the processes that I've just been talking about. So we'll start off with prediction. So in the story, a family have a beautiful day. So where did they go? What did they do? And what was the weather like? Okay, so imagine the story about a family. They have a beautiful day. Where did they go? What did they do? And what was the weather like? So just think about that a moment. I'm going to add some more information. So here are the characters. We've got Mum, Dad, we've got Nicholas, Jacob, donkey, dog, and birds. So in the story that you've started to imagine, has anything changed? If you think about these characters being involved. Okay, now I'm going to, just at the bottom we've got book-org, and this is the link to the website that I told you about, which has you know, no copyright, and you can download and use the books. Okay, so I'm going to now change the, I want to show you the book. So I'm going to just stop sharing and then I'll share you the book. So just bear with me for a moment. Okay, can you see it? Okay, well, I can't really see it. Okay, I hope you have. I'll just continue in the hope that you can. Okay, so I'm going to read the story to you. Remember your predictions. This story is called A Beautiful Day, and it's by Lindy Peltzel, Alana Breggin, and Risa Bauda. What a beautiful day, says Mum. Wake up, Nicholas. Hello, son, says Nicholas. Good morning, birds. It's a lovely day, says Dad. Let's have a picnic by the river. Can my friend Jacob come? Asked Nicholas. Can you see Jacob? He's looking through the window. Don't forget me. I love picnics, says Donkey. And me, I want to come too, says Dog. Follow us, say the birds. By the way, in this story, there's some characters that don't actually speak, so see if you can spot anybody else. On their way to the picnic spot. I'll race you to that tree, Nicholas says. I won, says Donkey. Oh, not fair, says Nicholas. You've got 4 legs. Look what I can do, says Nicholas. I bet you can't do this, says Jacob. Here's our picnic spot, says Dad. Race you to the water, says Jacob. Come and eat, boys and girls, says Mum. Just have a look what their picnic's made of. Time to go home, says Mum. Say goodbye to Jacob. And that's the end of the story. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint now. Okay. Okay, so it just takes a moment to on screen. Okay, so were your predictions similar to the story? How much did you manage to predict? So let's personalize a little bit. Imagine you went to the same place by the river. What would you do there? So just take a moment to imagine that. Would you go swimming like our friends in the story? Or maybe you'd just put your toes in the water, or maybe you'd go fishing. Now think of a beautiful day that you've had. Where did you go? What did you do? So if we were in the room together, I'd give you a bit more time to do this, but I've just given you some cues at the moment. I'm not going to spend a long time doing it because it's a bit strange because I'm not really very sure what's happening on the other side of the screen. So, okay, let's look at extension now. So, well, how could we extend this story then? So very simply, what do you think they did the next day? Maybe they went back to the river, or maybe Jacob and Nicholas had to go to school the next day. Imagine Nicholas and Jacob 5 years later. They probably would be about 14 or 15. What would they be like? What would they be doing in 5 years' time? Do you think they're still friends? Okay, so that was one example. I mean, very simple, but I think it should give you the idea. So I'm going to now show you another book called My Inside Weather. So look at the title again, My Inside Weather. So what could inside weather be? We know what the outside weather is, but inside weather is probably something to do with your mood or your feelings inside you. So I put some words for weather. So rainy, windy, cloudy, sunny, and stormy. And then I've put some words for mood. So confused, irritable, happy, angry, sad. Okay, so just have a look for a moment and see what you think the weather, so which mood does each type of weather match? Okay, and there's no right answer. But for example, for me, sunny equals happy. Okay, so just have a look. What do you think the other ones, or any of the weathers match according to yourself? Because if you're in Lahore, I mean, sunny could actually be irritable as it gets so hot. And let's say for me, like stormy would be angry. And cloudy could be confused. Windy for me is irritable. Okay, so now I'm going to read the story. So just bear with me while I change my screen. And this book is also from Book Dash. Okay. Right, okay, I hope you can see it. This is called My Inside Weather by Jen Thorpe, Lara Berge, and Emma Beckett. It's easy to talk about the weather outside, even if it changes all the time. And here you can see the little girl looking out of her window. And it's sunny, but it looks like it's going to rain. But she looks quite happy looking out of the window. But it's hard to talk about the weather inside me. Sometimes it feels like people don't understand. And if you look at the picture, you can see all kinds of thought clouds with her different moods. So it's raining and she looks a bit cross, a bit angry. And it's cloudy and she looks a bit scared or worried. And then there's a picture of her in the sun with some flowers and she looks very happy and serene. And then there's a picture of the sun and the little girl has a little bird. Maybe she's feeling warm and friendly and content. Do you feel like that too? So do you feel that sometimes people don't understand your inside weather? Some days my mind is full of sunshine and rainbows. I feel like I can do anything. On other days, my head is full of fog and clouds. It's hard to listen to what people are saying or remember things. I sometimes wake up feeling like it's windy and wild in my head. I feel tired and grumpy. And sometimes it feels like it's raining inside me. It can be a drizzle making me feel sad, or a storm making me feel angry. Sometimes the weather inside me doesn't match the weather outside. So there she is looking quite happy, whereas it's pouring with rain outside. Sometimes my inside weather doesn't match how I want to feel or how I think I should feel. So there it is, it's a nice sunny day and she doesn't look very happy at all. Is that okay? Yes, of course it is. Because emotions and feelings and moods are confusing, aren't they, sometimes? The best thing to do when we feel like our inside weather is strange is to tell someone we love and talk about it. They've got inside weather too, and they'll understand. So the granny understands exactly what she's talking about. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and go back to my PowerPoint. So, so who do you speak to when you want to talk about your inside weather? Okay, just think about that for a moment. In my case, I would speak to somebody who I know really well, a friend, my best friend, or my mom, my sister. Somebody you know who you want, who would understand you. Okay, so I'm coming towards the end of my session. So we started off talking about the overstimulation of the visual, and if we reduce it, we can help children to develop their imagination, which is really important. And sometimes in the way we are living at the moment, that children are not able, they don't have that space where they can develop their imagination due to overstimulation of the visual image. And then I showed you some techniques, which are really very broad brush techniques to support the imagination by getting children to predict or personalize or extend the story. And so I would also, again, I'd like to ask you, what was it like to have very little visual support during the session? And also think a little bit about how you could apply what I was saying to your children or your students. So those are things to ponder and think about. So that's the end. I'm going to stop sharing now. And I don't know if there's I don't think we have any sort of facility for questions and answers. Is that correct?
Fiona, we do have a Q&A box at the bottom, and
okay, yes. Okay, so I can't see any questions. I'll just wait a moment in case anybody has a question or a comment to put in. Okay, yeah, I can't really see anything. I can see a couple of comments actually. That somebody has made a comment that they were thinking about the word boring, and kind of being a little bit unversatile about, imagine that boring is bad when it's not. It's often just an indication of something else. And then somebody else had put in the comments how the animals in the first story that came on the picnic were unexpected, and they hadn't actually predicted that. Because yeah, we don't often take a donkey and a monkey on the picnic with us. Okay, so I'll just double check if there's any questions. No, okay. So thank you all very much. I really enjoyed being able to speak to you. I would have loved to have seen you all better and maybe had a proper conversation with you, but that will be for another time. So thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. And I think you're near the end of the conference, but I hope you enjoy the rest of it. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
हमें किताब चाहिए, हमें किताब चाहिए, जो जिंदगी बदल दे हमको वो निसाब चाहिए.